Hi, I'm Danny. You might know me as Dodford. Today we're going to be breaking down my video, Jim Carrey Doesn't Exist, cut by cut.
Why am I so blessed? Why is my life so miraculous?
I've had just endless gifts, and they've all been things that I have at some point sat and made myself believe were possible.
Row your boat gently down the stream.
What is that power that allows me to do such magical things?
Life is but a dream, you know. Row the boat gently down the stream.
Merrily, 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 ... Life is but a dream, and that's really the truth of it. It is a dream, you know. Absolutely.
So the first part of this sequence is using this concept of life is but a dream, and the whole song of Merrily, 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 Merrily that we're aware of. It's very light. It's very almost like a fairy tale, quite theatrical. And this is something that Jim Carrey resonates with, this idea of gratitude and understanding your place in the universe and feeling, I don't know, thankful for it. There's a lot to like. It's a lot further exploration of Jim Carrey to go into. We've discovered so many different types of Jim Carrey leading up to this point in the video, and now at this point, the concept of it is like all these different versions of Jim are converging, and we're seeing the ultimate universe Jim Carrey. So we're starting literally in space with this shot of a star, which is his universe, Jim Carrey, kind of emerging, this like single beam of light in a dark vast of space. Like the whole point of this sequence we're about to see is this slow descent into the wheels almost coming off, everything kind of collapsing, Jim Carrey waking up to understanding his place in the universe and realizing that not only all the characters he's played in his films, he's also a character himself. But we can't just start there. It has to be a very slow transition into this thing where if you want to get kind of crazy later on, it has to start very standard, grounded in the real world, which is where we are, him accepting and understanding and feeling grateful for who he is in reality. So when sort of that reality or the definition of reality shifts later on, we've got to start somewhere where it's light and easy to process.
Gifts, and they've all been things that I have at some point sat and made.
So these shots of him driving up Mulholland Drive, it's a plot point earlier on in the story where he manifests his future self, where he sees himself as this ultra successful being later on at some point in the future.
I used to go up to Mulholland Drive every night, sit on the side of the road, look out at the lights, and go, I'm a popular actor. Every director wants to work with me.
One thing I'm always kind of considering in the edit is about immersion. You won't often see, unless it's more of an intentional choice, like very basic stock footage. You know, I could have had a nice, vast drone shot of Mulholland Drive here because I Googled it and there were loads of options, but it didn't feel intimate enough. So I was looking and searching all over YouTube, which is actually where I find a lot of the stuff that ends up in these videos, is more of like someone up there has just gone with their own camera and it feels more homemade, and it almost feels like Jim is...
That I have at some...
Like even this shot of LA itself, it kind of feels of the time. It feels like he's just brought out his own video camera and is recording this himself, which it always leads back to like this whole conversation we're going to be talking about immersion, because that's what all of this has to be informed by. And to me, like the choice of stock footage or B-roll is super important in like really subtle, like subconscious things in why the view, or like how the viewer sees it. And I didn't want it to be too professional. It can't be too clean and like produced at this point. It has to feel very homemade and intimate.
Merrily, 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 ...
This kind of feels like a simple thing, but I don't like to use one example of something I'm talking about, and it actually is a complaint in my videos. Is like I repeat lines, or I just overuse the same clip too many times. But this falls under the same thing of I understand that in his Walk of Fame, it's not the star, it's the Walk of Fame thing on the ground, he writes Merrily, 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 Merrily. And so I'm just trying to source, every time I'm researching, I just source how many different angles and shots and videos of this are there out there, and can I compile it? Because like one way I see these videos is like the ultimate example of a certain story, and you need to see all the angles, all the different perspectives. And so I've got a video of him actually doing it into the clay.
Merrily, merrily, merrily.
And then a shot from this Jay Leno clip that he's talking on, and as well as my own photo, which I've just done my own kind of compositing on. That's the HD version. It's like a cacophony of different mediums and styles, and it feels very textured. And that way, like there's a variety rather than just letting one thing play for a long time or it all feeling too same-ish. I like to just try and have as much variety in style as I can.
Life is but a dream, and that's really the truth of it. It is a dream, you know. Absolutely.
So many of us choose our path out of fear disguised as practicality. It's as if some unseen force is working in my life, protecting me, guiding me, dancing right along with me. What we really want seems impossibly out of reach and ridiculous to expect, so we never dare to ask the universe for it.
The whole video has been so far using Jim Carrey's filmography and art to parallel the exact same things that he's going through in his life. We've had a big Truman Show sequence before this.
The obvious question here is, now I have to put on a serious tone now, so where are you in the middle of this?
We see that Truman Show is this like embodiment of where he is in life and how he felt like he was the subject of some big experiment and he was trapped almost. And we're doing the same thing here. It's match cutting different shots of him looking up at the sky and space and the stars. Really kind of like the whole point is trying to converge all these gems that we've created throughout this video and now cramming them together, and it's like mushing all this Play-Doh together and seeing how it all fits into one thing now, that way, so we can sort of break them apart later on. So now like it's an intentional choice to just try and find all the shots where things mirror and parallel throughout his art so we can use it as a way of explaining his life.
The universe for it. I guess there's no way to prove it. It's just a feeling I have that I'm not alone. I'm the proof that you can ask the universe for it.
So this is the first tone shift in this sequence. You can even see underneath here, this is the music. We've got this track that's been playing is the Merrily, 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 Merrily. And what happens throughout this sequence is another track starts to play above it, just really, really quietly at first. And it's this eventual crash. And this is the first tone shift where it's all these shots of him in his movies, and you can literally see the music starts right here at the same time as a shot of Jim looking right back at us. It's his first signal of him realizing there's something bigger at play here, and it's still in his head at this point. There's no way to prove it.
I guess there's no way to prove it. It's just a feeling I have.
It's just a feeling. He doesn't know for sure yet. It's still very small, but there's a potential of a bigger world out there. And I wanted to make a very distinct cut there, where it's like, at this point, he's not really been looking at us.
Or to ask the universe for it.
But on that, bang. Also, in this nursery rhyme track, I didn't let you hear that final note, so there's no closure in that dun, 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 until this point. Where now there's closure, and it feels like there's some finality to that part of the sequence, and now something else can start beginning. So this is like the first time that the tone kind of starts to shift.
I guess there's no way to prove it. It's just a feeling I have that I'm not alone. I'm the proof that you can ask the universe for it.
What about your search for happiness? I know you're constantly looking for that one thing that's going to make you happy.
I have no depression in my life whatsoever. I'm constantly examining myself. I probably do it too much. I've always overthought everything. I have sadness and joy and elation and satisfaction and gratitude beyond belief.
It was like this kind of overlook feeling that astronauts get.
Take us up, Ellen! I want to go to space with you!
So Jim even says it here, I've always overthought everything. And the kind of second half of this first tone shift is him questioning whether or not he's overthinking it, whether or not it's actually as big as he thinks it could be. And so it's him listing all these emotions he has, him trying to ground himself in reality, and him describing almost like when you have an anxiety attack and you start listing things around you, just sort of ground you. And it's him trying to do that now, and trying to be cognizant of whether or not he's overthinking it. So here we have it just with the music and no other dialogue. So you can hear that really, really light violin just shaking in the background. It's squeaking while the nursery rhyme still plays. So it's the nursery rhyme acts as still the core piece of music that you're hearing, but there's something else kind of emerging over the horizon, which starts out really, really small. It almost juxtaposes that really soft piano that feels safe, whereas this violin is starting to come and it feels very anxious. The music informs everything. Sometimes it'll be the first choice I make in a video, where like I pick out the music way before I've even picked out or even done any of the research, essentially. And here, that music choice is intentional. Again, like I said at the beginning, it's meant to be soft and light at the beginning, where it's him feeling grateful for where he is in the world, but things are starting to fall out of place. Like stars are starting to fall out of the sky, and that choice of having some music really slowly creep in is kind of the auditory embodiment or metaphor for like that starting to happen in his brain, where it's really slow, but it's eventually going to crash. And then eventually you're not even going to hear the nursery rhyme anymore.
I'm constantly examining myself. I probably do it too much. I've always overthought everything. I have sadness and joy and elation and satisfaction and gratitude beyond belief.
It was like this kind of overlook feeling that astronauts get.
Take us up, Ellen! I want to go to space with you!
You know, when they go out into outer space.
So there's a conversation to be had here about AI, and this video is over almost a year old now, and at the time of making it, I was really into Midjourney and Runway and all these cool little AI tools that can essentially visualize anything you want, and it's liberating, especially when you first discover it. It felt like this was this new thing that had unlocked all this potential for me to create anything I wanted. And on paper, that's true, completely true. But now looking back, it feels dated. And it's interesting to say that, because this is like one of the tools which is, it is like the most new and constantly updating tool there is. But I can't help but watch this now and visualizing this part of his story a different way, a more creative way. It feels safe, and I'm completely going against things I've said in the past about AI. But to me, it's got nothing really to do with the whole ethical conversation, and more about the immersion of things. And these shots of using Midjourney completely shatter my immersion as a viewer. Now, there are certain instances when it's acceptable, and I think that AI can create a very interesting, uncanny feeling when the whole point is to do that, to break people out and sort of question everything they're seeing. I've used AI shots in a Drew Barrymore video where she's in a club drunk for the first time when she's like 7 years old.
It's not very normal to see a 9-year-old at a big Hollywood party drinking.
And that whole point of feeling out of place and uncanny and everything looking intimidating and scary lends itself very well to AI photos. Now watching it back, I don't quite like it because, like I was talking about the stock footage earlier, driving up Mulholland Drive, it doesn't feel like it was captured by Jim himself. It doesn't feel like I've gone inside his brain and viewed the world through his eyes. And that if I had considered that truthfully, I don't think this is what would have come out in the end. Nowadays, I don't use AI to create images like this because it feels too safe, it feels too predictable. It feels like I'm not exercising my creative brain as much as I want to. And it's just too much of a cop-out, in my opinion. They should all be this isolated, standalone project that completely and truthfully speaks to this person as much as they can, which means they're all going to be completely different and unique in their own ways. There's footprints of a Dodford video, which is all about the editing. People say they're core editing because it's all very assembled together and you discover a point almost after you've finished watching, which is the way I like it to be. But they're going to be different every time. And things like the music choices, things like the visual style, things like the whole format of the video is informed by who I think they are as a person and how they want to be seen.
But all of it is weather. And it just spins around the planet.
Oh my God, deja vu. Deja vu. And you suddenly go like, well, if I'm so easily pushed aside, then who the hell am I in the first place?
And I ultimately found that even the me I created wasn't real.
So here we have the crash. This is where Universe Jim has completely emerged from his shell, and we're no longer doubting that idea. It's the tension almost has been relieved, even though we've now reached a climax, because there's no questioning whether or not it's going to happen. It's happened. We're here, and mirroring that same tone shift we saw earlier when he looked at us. Now we've got even closer. We've stepped through the screen, or maybe Jim Carrey has stepped through the screen himself, and now he's face to face with us.
That even the me I created wasn't real.
And he's come to that conclusion. He's no longer thinking whether or not he's overthinking it. There's a definitive statement.
That even the me I created wasn't.
Jim Carrey is a character. That's him saying it definitively. And now we're going to see everything kind of crash down the same way you'd come to a huge discovery like that. Leading up to this sequence, I'm using shots from his movies to parallel how he's feeling. I'm finding little shots that match. He says deja vu in this sequence, which it's an emotion that's really hard to describe. To create like the sense of deja vu in an edit is really confusing and was a bit of a head scratcher, but to me, like, it manifests in a way that involves paralleling all these certain moments in his long career and pairing them next to each other and seeing all these shots that match. So, for example, like these two shots of him lying on the ground, staring up at the sky with another person, look almost exactly the same, come from different movies in different years. But this only comes from watching just as much as you can of a person. The research process is extensive. Here we have 43 pages of our Jim Carrey research document. This was done by the beast Adam Bright, all credit to. But essentially, this is where those creative ideas start to form. You're not forcing anything, but just by going through, watching as many YouTube videos as you can. All these blue links are hyperlinks that take you directly to the video of him saying that quote. So that way I can come in and just watch anything and click on anything and see how it's said, see what the intonation is. Little things like that. But fundamentally, the point of this research document is just to, one, let us know exactly everything there is to know about a person, but two, to start categorizing things and finding buckets of themes and ways to split up this video later on, find out what the whole point is, why we're here, what the story is, the main thing to overcome, where we start, where we end. Very simple things like that. But we can see here, already this research document is split up into different headings. We've got Bedroom Jim, Performer Jim, Product Jim, Universe Jim. And you'll see in my script, that's what our chapter titles are called, what they end up being called. But in the research document, it's kind of throwing stuff against the wall and seeing if it works. And we just find as much as we possibly can. When you feel like you're done, you're not. It needs to be dozens of pages long, in my experience, for you to, even if you end up using 10% of it. I really like to make the videos secretly for people who might already be super fans of this person or someone who's extremely knowledgeable on it. And there's almost like there's Easter eggs in there for certain parts of a story or things that come later that just aren't included at all. You can only find out those things by literally just learning as much as you can, reading, watching, everything there possibly is. We watch every single movie, we watch every single interview dating back decades, and it's essential to me. I take this research document, after it's done, this might take a month, 5 weeks work, and then I build out a structure, I build out a simple outline. It's just bullet points where I think about what the acts might be. I know, and at this point it's still rough, but it tells me enough about actually how much of this research document I'm going to end up using. And it helps kind of categorize and organize our quotes in my head and on paper. Then, just by copying and pasting everything from this document, I can then just build out the script. And this acts as kind of the instruction manual. If we go down to, this is the final sequence that we're watching in this video. But when I come to the edit, I just use this as a step-by-step guide, essentially. I fill up the timeline with the quotes I know that I've written down in the script. Then it's the job to find the pacing and all those other creative flourishes later on in the edit. But this gives me the core foundation of what I need. I've also annotated almost every line down here on the side to tell myself later what would work here as B-roll.
I've had just endless gifts, and they've all been things that I have at some point sat and made myself believe were possible.
I like to do this because it feels like I've done all the creative thinking before I actually need to use it, and therefore I'm prepared, because I hate wasting time in the edit. I normally glide through the whole thing in like a week or two because I hate wasting time later on and thinking, oh, what should I do here? What should I put here? That slows me down. Whereas now I've done all this like creative note-taking, thinking about what could go here, at the same time, using the same brain, which then feels cohesive. It's just my way of doing it. I don't like to split up all my creative choices over a long period of time, because then it doesn't feel like my vision anymore. It's too extended. Whereas now I'm prepared. I can download everything I need here, build up a whole folder of all the B-roll and A-roll I need, and then essentially, in theory, I could turn off my Wi-Fi or go to a beach and edit the whole thing without needing to use any Wi-Fi or internet, because I've got everything I need, including music, right there. Then I can just open up Premiere and it all gets imported in different bins. This is a really unorganized project file now looking back, but it's all there. And I just follow an instruction manual, like I said, and put things in clip by clip. I don't think about the cutting or the creative choices in pacing quite yet. It's just, this goes in after this, after this, after this, after this. You'll see, like, this is Carrey V3, but normally, before I switch onto a V2, V1 is still going to be 95% the same as the finished product. I'm a huge believer in making that first draft as best as you possibly can. You need a super good foundation to act as a launch pad. It starts just by throwing random things in the project file, but before I consider that draft done, I've thought about the length of every clip. I've thought about the music. It has to emerge from something that you really believe in, and I believe in having a V1 that is going to be super close to the finished product. I won't have more than 3 versions, at least in terms of like excluding things like subtitles in the final thing. It's the finished video is going to exist by the V3. It's normally this one where sound design goes in. In V2 is when I've got all the visuals go in, all the animations and stuff. And so V1, it's still going to have all the tempo and the beats and the right pacing. Just by V3, all those things have come together.
I'm into expanded consciousness. Like right now, even sitting here, I am the audience.
Everybody wears a mask.
Japanese the cookie crumbles.
All wear masks, metaphorically speaking.
At this point, I'm using a lot of TV shots. It's him looking out at the audience again. He's discovered that he is the audience, so there's this kind of whole blurring between the TV screen and reality. I've went through and I've found like all the shots of TVs in his movies, as well as using shots from him in interviews and reality, using my own TV assets. This TV specifically is like a TV asset that I use earlier on in the video. This is actually his like childhood living room. Not necessarily something that people will pick up on really, but it's like, to me, it represents like him seeing himself as a child on that same TV that he was seeing Johnny Mathis on, and like seeing his idols. Now, like, it's almost like the reverse is happening. Logistically, I will make these shots in After Effects, and it's really, really simple. To be fair, I did say had the whole conversation about AI. I don't like to use it for people anymore, but these TV shots or shots of a living room, like AI does it really well. And so I still use TV shots from AI. But like ultimately, it's just I cut out the screen. I put in my shot from one of his videos in there. I've got a reflection, which comes from, if I solo this, it's just another TV shot that I've generated. It doesn't have to be AI, it could be a real TV. And I've just cut out everything except the screen. If I just put that underneath the real TV and above the video, then it acts and put it on screen blend mode, then it looks like the TV reflection. And it like that's the thing. It doesn't really matter about all the other effects you add. Like that's the one thing that makes it feel real in my experience. It's all paired to a null object. So you can see there's some animations with the scale. So it's going in, moving in here, cuts in, it crops in really close there. You can't see this part in the video because other things are happening, but essentially it scales in, so we get even closer towards the end. We're kind of just like collapsing in towards the screen. We're getting melted in is the thought process. On my adjustment layer, it's things like I have a real subtle camera shake, a camera lens blur that is attached to a fractal noise like this. Those are my settings if you want to look. The blur will only go on the white sections of this fractal noise. Now that's my blur map. I've just turned that off. You can see it's just there but pre-comped. In my adjustment layer under camera lens blur, you can just set the blur map to the blur map you've made. And for example, if I reset the blur loads, you can see like the blur is only touching that part. That's one of the Dodford visual style footprints, I guess, that I've used a lot, is that blur moving around the screen thing. Don't really know where it came from, but now I do it on almost every shot. I just really like the look of it, but it has to be really, really subtle. Chromatic aberration, if I really zoom in, this is a free plugin. Again, it's all trying to mimic the visual style of film, and there's a lot of chromatic aberration on film. It's also just part of the style I like now. And you see it's like just to the edges, adding a bit of green or purple. You can change whatever colors you like there, but it's better than the built-in Premiere Pro chromatic aberration. A real subtle brightness and contrast flickering, lots and lots of grain. I want the videos to feel analog. I want them to feel like watching a film, like real physical film. And so I've got 500T grain, I've got a extensive pack of different grains that I like, that I've downloaded over the years. Bit of vignette just to focus the center of the screen a little bit with some grain. It's not rocket science on these shots. It's kind of just reusing the same effects that I've used throughout all the videos. This is like the one thing I do like to keep the same in like the real physicality, the analog feeling of the film. That's why my videos are kind of predominantly based in the 90s, because I think that's like the peak of all this blending of different formats and mediums. The newest video I'm making is about Quentin Tarantino, and every single clip in that video that isn't a shot from a film is a single After Effects composition where I've heavily edited almost every single shot to look a certain way. It's the first time I've ever gone that thorough in the edit with compositing, but it matters to me for some reason, because now it feels like part of the brand. It feels like I want to make everything look as polished and cohesive as I can. In this one, I'm still using a lot of just raw clips from interviews and stuff without much more added to it. But as I've gone on, I feel like I want to try and make everything fit under the same Dodford umbrella in terms of the brand and the visual style as I go on.
And the audience.
Everybody wears a mask.
Japanese
The cookie crumbles.
All wear masks, metaphorically speaking.
That shot from The Truman Show, where he's literally slamming that screen, it's him now fully aware that we're watching him, and he's trying to break that bridge between us and him so we can escape into space. You know, he's like now fully transcended. This is universe Jim. I'm finding all these like beautiful lines where he talks about space and his place in the universe in something as crazy as Horton Hears a Who. This is him saying this line.
We're in the middle of some kind of amazing cosmic convergence.
That line's from Horton Hears a Who, I believe. You wouldn't know that because you don't see it, but it's a beautiful one. It's a really profound line, but it's hidden underneath this space, and in the context of this like heavy music, it has a different context to it.
It's all falling apart.
It's all falling apart. I'm finding all these shots where things are literally crashing. That shot of the light falling in the Truman Show is kind of the inciting incident. It's when the first sign of something more sinister emerges. In Eternal Sunshine, that film is edited so wackily that, I mean, again, things are falling out of the sky, and it's almost like it's just part of the world.
Look at it out here. It's all falling apart.
But Jim's aware of it. It's all falling apart. Why are you not aware of this?
Then who am I?
I'm everywhere, man. I'm all around you, man.
Says, I'm all around you, man. The car is spinning around. It's like simple things like this, but it's, again, things like I pick up on when I'm watching so many things that I write down, like, okay, that means something, or I'll come up with an explanation for that later on.
Two vastly different worlds, miraculously crossing paths. You're the star.
It's a necessity for me to change. So I don't know whether it'll be a good change or an acceptable one, but I will change.
One of the questions that came up in research very early on was this repeated like question of what happened to Jim Carrey? Like, where did he go? This man from the 90s that we all adored, this icon. Who is the guy now with the beard? Like, it's not the Jim Carrey that we fell in love with. Like, knowing those questions that the general public are curious about is essential. And we're answering it here, not by giving it a direct, like, answer to the question, but more showing that Jim, even when he was a young man here, I mean, he's doing press for Dumb and Dumber here, so he's in 94, but he's pointing to the future and he's foreshadowing that he's going to change. Like, he can't be this man forever. He knows enough that the Jim he is, even now, isn't a true representation of who he is, and he's going to evolve. The real answer to that question, what happened to Jim Carrey, is like, he changed. We all do. He's aware of it. He knew it was going to happen, and there's nothing to be scared of in that. And I'm visualizing this point by showing him doing the same thing twice here. He comes out on Arsenio Hall in the 90s and just stands there and doesn't do anything, just sort of absorbs the audience and the applause, and it looks a little bit awkward. You know, you see Arsenio Hall just kind of watching him because it breaks procedure, essentially, to do something like that on a chat show. He's not being approachable or presentable. He's just standing there doing nothing. He does the exact same thing on Jimmy Kimmel years later as this new Jim that no one really can grasp or put their finger on. And we're always looking for these parallels in someone's life and these moments that kind of repeat themselves. And there's a cyclical nature to these things that happen in people's lives. It happens all the time to everyone, but like, because we watch so much stuff and there's so much content out there on people like Jim Carrey, you see loads of them, and him doing this twice really stood out to me to, like, in one cut, completely represent that shift in him as a person, where on paper, he's exactly the same. Like, he's just grown older, he's grown a beard, he's the same guy doing the same thing. But now that we've gone through this whole story, in one cut, like, we can see everything that's happened. We're part of his story, and from here to here, there's a huge hidden part to, like, the hidden story in one cut right there.
So I don't know whether it'll be a good change.
This is just a close-up of him looking out at the audience, and again, this is a really simple thing, but I do see beginner documentary filmmakers or whoever making documentaries or videos on YouTube will think, I need to say more by showing more, and there are moments for that, like earlier on in this fast cutting sequence, but now just playing on someone's face and letting their eyes do the talking and being really close to them, being intimate, can say way more than having to make a cool animation or something else, or trying to find different B-roll. It's like, if you've got a good shot of someone, of the person, of the subject, just being themselves, I'm always going to use that over almost anything else.
So I don't know whether it'll be a good change or an acceptable one, but I will change.
So as we reach the end of this sequence, the key word really is all about immersion. It is for this sequence, it is for this whole video, it is for the Dodford channel. The whole philosophy behind all of it is, at all costs, how do you immerse the viewer in as much as you possibly can? To me, that has represented itself in so many ways, like throughout my career on YouTube. The first one was just cutting myself out with a face cam. Then I started cutting my voiceover out. This one is actually the first video that has 0 of my voice in it, and it's all being told through his clips, through his voice, through news reporters of the time. So it really feels like you're in that time period where I try not to use clips that are very evidently more modern if I'm telling a story set in the past, because it's just the way I approach it. It's like I want people to really feel like this documentary could have been made at that time. The better I've gotten at making documentaries, the worse I've gotten at making a successful YouTube video. There are a million factors into play when it comes to that. But I do think the further I grow and evolve as a creative, the less I've drifted from my early success when things were more predictable or more safe. I was playing the YouTube game because that's all I knew, intentionally taking something out to challenge you creatively. And in my experience, that's helped the outcome and the success of that project. But more than that, besides that, it's what you learn and what you grow, how you grow from doing that, and challenging yourself is way more impactful than anything like views or subscribers will be. It's like, how much are you developing as an artist from video to video?